we're gonna go over the changes one by one. I'm going to give you guys my takes, and I'm really praying that there is some skin action here. I'm gonna go goblin mode when I get to the Lucian changes, dude. Salted Peanut, thank you for the Prime sub. All right, here we go. Patch 4.1. We have officially entered the first 3-month patch cycle cadence, whatever Runeterra calls it. We are now in the new Runeterra life, Runeterra content cycle, whatever. It's happening. Oh, and there are no images. Great. All right, we should probably wait for those. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly take a sneak peek. Or there's no skins, is there? There's no freaking skins. Can't spend my money. All right, cool. Let's begin. First of all, shout out to the Runeterra report. Make sure to follow them on Twitter. Here we go. All right, it's gonna look a little bit scuffed, but here we go. Starting with Illaoi. Illaoi goes from 1-6 to 2-6. Now, this doesn't really matter that much. We also know that Quietus got nerfed, which we're going to see later on. But in combination with some of the other buffs that we can see here, it might actually be, pretty relevant. Going from 1-6 to 2-6, I remember when Illaoi went to a 1-5, then went back to 1-6, now goes to 2-6, and what's basically happening is Illaoi is just paying for the sins of all the insanely good spawn cards. Mostly Eye of Nagakabouros. Tentacle Smash was kind of out there as well. This used to be a 4-mana spawn 3, which was just really good removal in build fodder. So this, I don't think, changes much, but in combination with these, this is going to make a fairly big impact on the meta. I would expect to see a lot of Illaoi. This is pretty big. You cannot look at any of these changes alone. You have to put them like in combination with the others. Now, the most important thing here is that other stuff got nerfed. Does Illaoi hold up against Kayn Aatrox? I don't think she did. I don't know how good that matchup was, but they were able to run Unforgiving Cold. We know that deck got nerfed, so we're not going to see it as much. Katarina got nerfed. Kind of. I don't think that matters. Quietus got nerfed. These are all things that just really help Illaoi. Plus some of these buffs. Pretty big deal. And it's mostly going to be these two. Tentacle Smash goes from 4 mana to 3 mana. This is massive. Anytime a card goes from 4 mana to 3 mana, you have to be careful, because 3 mana is obviously the amount of spell mana you can bank. So as long as you hold 3 mana, you can play this whenever. And in an Illaoi deck, that's going to be good. Outside of Illaoi, I still don't think it's great. But in combination with all of these, yeah, it's pretty good. I've been on the receiving end of a Watchful Idol being played on turn 1 into an Eye of God, the weapon that spawns 2, or the 0/0 weapon that spawns 2, and it kind of takes over the game. Like, it is probably one of the highest tempo starts you can have at the start of a game, like turn 1-2. It kind of just wins. Plus these two buffs, I think it's going to be nasty. I'm expecting a lot of Illaoi. The Nagakabouros is nice. It's more like, you know, in the line of Hydravine, but if on turn 8 you don't have a Tentacle in your Illaoi deck, you're probably not going to win anyway. So I don't think this changes much, but the other two are pretty huge. This is like, yeah, maybe I'll play one Nagakabouros and 1 out of 50 times I'll win the game with it. Outside of that, probably not happening. Yeah, this is a win more buff, exactly. Hey, Illaoi looks like she is going to be winning more with these buffs. Expect to see some potentially tier 1 Illaoi decks, honestly. Let's see if this works. Still doesn't work. Okay. So we'll look at the packages one by one. That seems like the smartest thing to do. Okay, so here are some Jax buffs and a Maokai. This Maokai buff is only going to be relevant for Deep. Deep was kind of sleeper. I don't want to say it was like something that could take over the meta, but it was better than people gave it credit. And this is just like a small buff. Going from 1 attack to 2 attack is pretty huge. Anytime you see a 1/4 stat line, it's a joke, unless you really like just have a disposable unit. And if you're Seraphine, you're just a joke in the literal sense of the word. I'm just laughing at you because of how stupid you are. If you're Zillion, though, you're a Giga Chat. But those are champions that kind of stay back. And Deep actually wants to block very often. They don't care as much about their units. Obviously, Maokai is a engine, But having Maokai be a 2-4 and sometimes just being like, okay, I just need to stop this attack and then I can go deep and I can take over the game. That's a lot better than Zilean, who sometimes gets like some time bombs, or Seraphine, who just like pops off with her spells and doesn't really need to block. But deep is a lot more about their units, which makes the one attack a little more meaningful. Don't think this changes much. It's just a nice thing to have. This is not going to skyrocket the deep play rate. It's not going to suddenly spawn new Maokai decks. Just, it's nice to have, right? It's the classic on the bingo chart where it's like, okay, random champion or random card that hasn't really seen any play gets a meaningless +1 stat buff on attack or health. This is that. You can cross it off your bingo chart. Here it is. Now, for the buffs that are likely, if you ask me, going to create some form of tier 1 deck are the Jax changes. So Jax on level 2 gains Overwhelm. This doesn't look like it matters because when Jax levels, the Light of Acacia, Jax's weapon, gets Overwhelm. So Jax usually has Overwhelm on level 2, right? But since you're playing with Weapon Masters, and since sometimes you get the Scout weapon, that means that now, if you get that on Jax, you can actually attack twice and push a lot of damage with the Overwhelm. Jax also gets +1/+1 for every attack. So getting the Scout weapon on Jax is going to be really, really good and might make weapons or cards like Sherzies a little bit better, for example. The stocks of heavy metal are going up pretty significantly because of this. We also can't forget that Jax got buffed in a previous patch where Jax now levels at 12 attack instead of 15. This is really nice, but this wouldn't be enough to make Jax playable. This, on the other hand, Fishfight and Roar of Acacia are now Weapon Master card. I was calling for this to be a change that would likely not happen anytime soon because it would be broken. And they did it anyway. Now that I've built decks with it, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is very good, but it's probably not as broken as I think it is. But this is something people have been asking about a lot. What the deck that changes the most because of this is likely going to be Ornn. Ornn Jax was pretty unplayable because you were forging one weapon. You were going really back. You were going really big. You were playing a big stat overwhelm deck essentially because you couldn't get any interaction. You had to do your own thing and try to end the game as soon as possible with big stats. With Fishfight, you can slow the deck down. You can go in so many different directions because you have interaction. You can actually do something with whatever your opponent is trying to do. And Fishfight is a really, really big deal for that. It synergizes so freaking well with Jax. It's insane. The Roar Acacia too. I think Roar matters less because Jax already has cards like Parts Made Whole, which are likely better than Roar of Acacia. Also, with the Hookmaster nerf, I don't really know how many Weapon Masters you're going to be playing. I'm expecting the optimal Jax Ornn decks to play the Piltover Castaway and the Combat Cook. And that's probably about it. So you're not going to get that many weapons stuck in your hand. And Roar of Acacia is mostly just get those units back on the board, right? It can be really good in a Forge archetype because then you can suddenly get like, I don't know, a 5/6 on the board if you're using this to summon a Acacian Mirage with like a really big forged up weapon. But it shouldn't be necessary. It seems like it's your deck already has a lot of tools to deal with those weapons that get stuck in your hand, like Parts Made Whole, like Catch. Annika, what do you want with Annika? Jax Ornn isn't going to play Annika, I'm pretty sure. You can run the Failure Spear. Yeah, I mean, you can optimize or try to give the deck a slightly different spin, but Annika doesn't seem like it's great in these type of decks. You really want those units to give you those weapons. You don't want to actually play weapons in your deck. And yes, another one that I cannot forget about is Jax Tristana. Tristana also got a buff that we're going to see later. She gets Impact on her base form. It might actually be playable. Jax Tristana might actually be a thing. And I'm not talking about a Battle Tree deck. I'm just talking about the multi-region Weapon Masters plus the Battle City Mayor just getting really big on the board early. You now have Jax with Overwhelm, so you can give Jax's weapon to Tristana for the Overwhelm. There might be something there. I'm going to be experimenting with it. It's hard to say because Tristana has been so bad. But C is going to level really, really fast with Jax in the deck. There is a good chance that it does something. I Would not be surprised to see that make an actual appearance in the meta somewhere at some point. The Jax changes just seem huge. Fish fight is such a big deal. Fish fight is so huge for it. These are also just really, really, really big. This is kind of insane in my opinion. The Artisan especially. Artisan goes from 1-4 to 2-3. And it's like what I said with Maokai. The stat line is just so much better. These are huge changes. This is so big. Time and dedication is actually an insane card. But what are you gonna do with a 1-4 in Freljord? Freljord is like really good at keeping their units alive, but why would you want to keep a 1-4 alive? It doesn't trade into anything. You just want this card to die so you can make board space. Having it be a 2-3, it will actually trade into stuff. Yeah, 1 attack into 2 attack is huge. You cannot understate that. Very, very, very big change. Artisan is by far the biggest one. Apprentice goes from 1-1 to 1-2. I also quite like this. I think this card is pretty underrated. I will definitely be playing it more. So, again, the issue I run into, though, is that you really don't want to play 2-mana weapons in these type of decks. Buffing up the Annika, the Darkened Spear, is not great because it just becomes a 1-3, right? Sure, you can make this a 2-5 on turn 2, but you're spending cards for that, and you want to kind of pass that weapon along to something else. Yeah, timeline support is also a really good one. Jack's timeline, good call. That might also just be quite good right now. Yeah, the best thing you could do with the Apprentice is just play Jax on 2. You play Jax on 2, he becomes a 4-3. You play the 3-3 that forges, Jax becomes a 5-4, and just kind of win the game. You then just take it slow. You're at 4 mana. You have access to 2 mana Troll Chant. You have access to 2 mana Fish Fight. And you have cards like Catch. You're actually like playing the game. You're making moves. You're using funny combos to win the game. You're playing the game without just smashing and praying that it works out. I like this. There is something here for sure. I expect Jax Ornn to be very, very, very playable. You also can't forget about the 8-8 that got buffed a patch ago. The 8-8 costs 8 mana, and the first time it's equipped, it puts a copy in your hand. But now that copy costs 4 mana. I don't expect that to see play like more than as a one-of, but if it does, it's a win con, and a pretty big one at that. So the Mender is also a pretty interesting change. This card did get better. It's weird to see it lose 1 attack, but that was necessary for the 2-time Forge. What's funny is that right now, because Ornn also got buffed to a 5-5, which is like whatever, right? Individually, these changes are whatever, but when you put them all together, they're pretty big. What's cool now is that you can play the Babbling Björk that draws a 5-attack unit. It will no longer draw the Mender, it will always draw Ornn. And Ornn is a big finisher for those type of decks. So now you can play Björk. I'm expecting a 1 or 2 of Björk in that deck. It will most of the time draw Ornn, and sometimes it will draw that 1 of the 8-8, which can take over the game. You're mostly just praying for Ornn because you have a big weapon and you wanted to like end the game immediately. And like they said on the stream, it's really interesting that right now, if Ornn copies a weapon that has at least 1 attack, which is pretty easy to do in this archetype, Ornn will already level because Ornn forges twice, makes Ornn go to 8. So after 1 swing, Ornn will level no matter what. And yeah, again, almost every weapon you play here will have 1 attack, if not every single weapon. So Ornn also a card you will see a lot more often, and you put this entire archetype together, all the buffs that they got, and the one that's at the very center of it is still Fish Fight. It's so important. I was not expecting them to do it because I thought it would be broken. I can't wait to play with it. The only interaction that this deck really had was, well, freezes, but that doesn't really count. They had the 2 mana burst spell that gives an equipped ally challenger and draws a card. But with Fish Fight, it's like actually good removal. You don't need the attack token. You can use it whenever. You get a free strike because you're always going to have a weapon equipped. It's huge. It's going to be a really, really, really big deal. I'm in love. Super cool changes. I think it's a cool archetype. Can't wait for it to finally see some play. Okay, so Tristana gains impact. We already just talked about this. Meaningless, but with the Jax buffs, it might see some play, and then this is like another nice-to-have change. Probably doesn't matter. Probably meaningless. Shadow Reverence. Refills 2 spell mana into refill all spell mana. I hate this. I don't want to see any Rise deck become tier 1 because it'll be miserable. And this brings that one step closer. This is a pretty big change. They tried to buff Rise, but they nerfed him. How is this? This is a nerf? How is this a nerf? Oh, I, because of I. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay. We'll talk about that later when we get to I. But yeah. Big buff, honestly. The reason they did this might be because of the Eye of Nagakabouros nerf that we get to later. It feels like it'll be miserable when Ryze is top tier. We've seen it with Bonus Shurima, we've seen it with Fiora, we've seen it with Starspring, I guess. And having Exodia be your tier 1 deck, and all those decks try to do is just delay you while they slowly set up their win con. It's just not that fun to play against most of the time. So I like Ryze, I do, but I mostly like him because he's not that good. And this makes him a little bit better and makes him get a little bit closer to that tier 1 status. Okay, let's just hope he doesn't fully get there. This probably won't be enough, but yeah, it'll get closer. Shadowshift from 3 mana to 2 mana. This is not going to see any main deck play. This is okay when you're playing Zed. I doubt you'll ever be using this spell, honestly. It's very often that this is just bad, but sure. Meaningless. Bad take. You think this is gonna make any difference at all? Okay, name me one deck where this is like, oh my god, this buff makes my deck so much better. Maybe in Ahri decks? This does not make Ahri playable. Ahri Ephemeral? That's not a real deck. And it's not gonna become a real deck because of this. At least Cannon. Okay, come on, dude. This is gonna make a Cannon deck playable? This does not do that. -1 mana on a card that still doesn't help you win the game does not suddenly make a different archetype good. Even Nora for getting 1 more stack, if you're using this with the idea of making Nora level faster, you're gonna lose the game. It's that simple. If you're playing for this, you're losing. If you're using it to protect your unit and then get like a small upside, that's how you want to play this. But there's no card that doesn't already do that better. It's playable at most. This is not main deckable. Good for Karma decks? No, it's not. You guys are naming bad cards, and then you're saying that this card that was already bad with a really small buff makes those unplayable decks better. Does it make them better? Maybe, but do you want to main deck this in an already bad deck? Absolutely not. Now you're going to see Shadowshift created from Seraphine, saving her from removal. Then it's still, I'd still rather see this than something like Retreat. This is not main deckable, but now second Zed Hersley. Yeah, no, I agree with it. This is okay when you're playing Zed, and that's really about it. It's just a Conch Sarah buff. I get, yeah, with Conch, okay, fine. With Conch, I can kind of see it, but there are still cards that do it better, that are already in Ionia. The interesting comparison is the 2 mana card from Ionia, Gruesome Theater, that recalls, I don't know if it's attack or health, but the thing about that is you can use both on your own unit to recall them. This one gives you a 3/2 to block, and the other one also lets you use it on your enemies. So that's like the trade-off, right? Do I want to have the option to recall my enemy units, or do I always want to recall my own unit and give them a 3/2 to trade into? I think the flexibility of being able to recall your enemy unit is better. I'd main deck Gruesome Theater over this for sure because of the flexibility. Yeah. Okay, Lissandra. When I'm summoned, summon a frozen troll. That troll now advances the countdown by 2, and only the one that's summoned from Lissandra. So this basically means Lissandra summons a 7 countdown troll. This is a nice change. I actually kind of like this. I don't like thralls at all. Don't get me wrong. I don't want thralls to come back. But for making Lissandra like a small quality of life buff, making her feel more important in thrall-focused deck is really nice. There are people that like thralls. I don't understand it. I will never be one of them. But as far as quality of life changes go, that's pretty nice. Okay. And then there is this. And I know I'm gonna save Lucian for last, okay? I'm gonna save Lucian for last because I know there are some hot takes that that are gonna hurt my brain. Okay. Oh, did I miss one? Yeah, we're doing nerf last. Hate Spike goes from 2 damage to 3 damage. I don't know how to feel about this. So I am more of an Eve player than I am a Shadow Owl player, and from an Eve perspective, I'll say it's a pretty big buff. Because Eve doesn't get to run interaction except her champion spell, and that matters. This is pretty nice because it lets you like reroll a husk. It lets you remove something with 3 health. I can't really say anything for the Shadow Owl Slay decks. I think it's pretty good. 2 damage compared to 3 damage is a pretty big change. You guys think it's good? Okay, I mean, I can see that, yeah. My problem personally is that I don't really know what these decks look like right now, and we haven't really seen many Kindred decks. But this is nice for Shadow Owls. Sure. The problem I have with this card very often is that it's a removal spell that sometimes just gives you a husk that lets you win the game. That was especially pretty frustrating when it was 1 mana, because it was like, okay, I'm slaying my own unit, I'm progressing my game plan in that way, I'm also killing something, and sometimes I just roll into a completely insane husk that will just let me win. Like sometimes you get an elusive husk for your Nessus. Sometimes you get a spell shield for your Kindred, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm screwed now. So yeah, I would expect to see this on play, and I would expect this to make Slay and Shadow Owls decks better. You can kill a Jinx with it. That's enough to convince me. You can kill a Jinx with Hate Spike now, and that is actually pretty nice.
Content. Keep it up, Snnuy love.
Yeah, I expect to see a fair amount of play in Shadow Owl decks. If Shadow Owl Slay decks are playable, and Kindred is still pretty good. If we're going into a mid-range meta, then yeah, Kindred has some chance to survive. Fish Fight, though. Fish Fight is still like the biggest change. And if we see a lot of Fish Fight, then Shadow Owl decks, like their engines, don't really stand a chance to survive. It's hard to say. It's like you're kind of weighing everything against each other. But Hate Spike is nice. It's good. It's just good. Okay, Dragoncaller goes from 6 to 5 mana. I'm expecting this to still be unplayable. And I've experimented with this deck a fair amount. The Empyrean, being ephemeral, it makes sense. It wouldn't be balanced otherwise. But for a 5 mana card to make that kind of investment, to very often like not even get to attack with it, it's hard to find a home for a deck that wants to do this kind of thing. Because if you're playing Dragoncaller, you have to do it as a win con, and this is not very reliable as a win con. You're dealing 6 damage at most on your attacking turns only. On your defending turns, you get a blocker, sure, but that's still like you're paying 5 mana for that. It takes too long to ramp up for this to be worth it. Just kind of reliably trigger flow when you need it. Yeah, it's especially hard if you have to activate flow just to have that Dragoncaller active. I've played a lot with this deck. Well, not a lot, but probably more than most people. Probably more than most people should. And the issues were always, I'm late in the game and I can't really activate my flow efficiently. And the 6/5 that I'm getting isn't doing anything meaningful for me to alter my game plan in this way. I'm expecting this to not see any main deck play, unless the Yi buff we're going to see later turns out to be much bigger than it actually is, which, you know, I don't think it's going to be super impactful. Okay, I'm skipping Lucian. We're going over that one last. Albus Ferros deals 1 to deals 3. So this is now a Jinx Rocket, because Jinx Rocket also got nerfed to 3. This is pretty nice. It's pretty good. Albus Ferros will see play. We'll see play in Heimer Jace decks. It becomes like a really, really, really scary card that will just end the game. And it draws a Jace, so there is immediate value. This is a good change. Heimer Jace decks have been good for a very long time, and I'm expecting them to stay good. This will make the deck better, for sure. This is why I'm not really a fan, because Heimer Jace Shadow Owl version has been in the meta for a very long time, and it's always just kind of good. Like it's not overbearingly powerful, but it's just always around, right? So Albus Ferros somehow making that deck like even stronger. I don't know. I'm not a fan. I don't think this was necessary. Way to Judgement. Goes from 4 mana deal 7 to 3 mana deal 4 to a follower. I don't hate this because it's in Telstones. This seems pretty bad still, but the only thing this does is it might make Shuriman and Telstones a little bit better. Won't see any main deck play. Like the one thing to consider always, right, is that you have to look at an effect and then think, okay, how does this fit into the region? And Shurima doesn't really have a direct way to deal 4. There's Rite of Arcane, which requires you to play a landmark deck because it's unplayable otherwise. Then you look at this card, it's only the followers, obviously. 3 mana deal 4 is pretty huge. Yeah, but champion power level is pretty big. And the good champions have more than 2 health. I guess Nora. I guess Nora has 2 health, and that's about it, really. But you don't want to pay 3 mana to kill a Nora. You didn't want to pay 4 mana. You don't want to pay 2 mana. So this doesn't kill a Jinx. I liked it to kill Hydrovine. Yeah, that would be pretty good. Yeah, you could kill a Hydrovine with this. But that doesn't make you want to main deck it, right? So these changes still don't want to make you main deck it. But the Telstones are buffed, I would say, with this. Okay, let's go over... do you guys want to do Lucian now or later? Okay, I'll talk about Lucian now. Okay. I'm just gonna say right now, Chad. If you think that Lucian got nerfed because he dies to pings, you're thinking about card games wrong. And I've seen this take multiple times, and it's painful to read. That's not how it works. You have to look at Lucian as a good, powerful level 2 champion in a region that can make use of it, in a region that can protect and support a 1-mana unit, and also as a region that already has a lot of powerful 2-mana units. This is also, believe it or not, this is better if you want to play Lucian and a 3-drop Senna. You play Lucian on 1, on turn 2 you skip, and then on turn 3 you play Senna, and you have your single combat mana open, you have your sharp side mana open, you name it. Lucian, exactly, Lucian now also curves into Darken Eggs. That card did get nerfed, it only gives +1 health and tough now instead of +1/+1. If Darken Eggs still gave +1/+1, this would be huge. It's a little bit less huge. The difference is 1 damage pings are many more than 2. I think you're straight up wrong. So, yeah, this is what I mean. It just doesn't matter that Lucian dies to pings. It's the same with Zoe, right? Very often, when I'm playing Zoe decks, I'm in a scenario where I'm playing against Shadow Owls, and I have a way to protect my Zoe. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not gonna do this because for this Quietus, for this Valfees, or whatever they want to throw at me, they'll have more removal. But if you're playing against a region combination like Freljord, Targon or something, suddenly I'm very interested in keeping my Zoe alive. And it's going to be the exact same with Lucian. There are ways to keep Lucian alive in Demacia. Very good ones, in fact. And you want to use those only when you think Lucian has a chance of popping off. Just main deck Chain Vest? No, that's exactly another thing. You can play Lucian without making any additional investments into your deck. You don't need to just play spells just to protect Lucian. It's just a 1-mana 2/1 with quick attack. That is just good. That's just, you're winning. Look at all these champions that are in Demacia, okay? Look, Demacia champion. Okay. Which one of those are playable right now? Vayne, I haven't seen Vayne for a while, honestly. Vayne was very good, probably the best champion that they had for a while. 3 mana. Lucian 2 mana, now 1 mana. Fiora doesn't see play. Poppy doesn't see play. Shyvana, no play. Garen, Lux, Quinn, Jarvan, Galio, none of these see meta play. Demacia was played as the rally region. You go to Demacia, you go to their 2-drops. This used to be an insane 2-drop. This is a good 2-drop. This is a good 2-drop. This is one of the best 2-drops in the game. This was a good 2-drop in Vayne decks. Whenever you play Demacia, you're going to find a good 2-drop. So why would I pick Lucian as a 3/2 with quick attack? Because they weren't champions? Yeah, I mean, sure, of course. But then why even look? Like, Lucian would be good because his level up can sometimes win you the game. It's a good card. A 3/2 with quick attack in a region like this is just, it's good. But if you already have so many good 2-drops, why would you play it? It's like Draven. Yeah, basically, yeah, you're right. It's basically like Draven. I think you guys are mistaken playable with good decks. Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to as well. I was like Draven, you're just playing Draven because he was a 3-mana 3/3 with quick attack. That's just good. A 1-mana 2/1 with quick attack is just good. It doesn't need to win you the game immediately, but sometimes it does. You're in Demacia. You're going to play spells. You're going to have access to some spells that will sometimes just be able to protect your unit if you want them to. But you don't always want them to, but that's a good thing. You get a choice. And if it doesn't work out, well, you only lost a 1-mana unit. Demacia does not have a good champion for those type of low to the ground deck concept. We had scouts. Obviously, Quinn was playable in there. Right now, with the way scouts have been played, they play cards like Marai Warden, cards like Island Navigator. Lucian just fits in there really, really well. You just keep it low to the ground. Of course, Quinn did help by going wide, but with Lucian, you just have like another way to apply early pressure, another unit you can keep alive, and another way to sometimes level up and sometimes just win. I agree that losing a champion slot is meaningful because you want to play Lucian, but that's the thing, right? Demacia didn't have any champions you wanted to play. You were always settling for less, and then you had to find another champion in another region that sometimes didn't do the job exactly the way you wanted to. Demacia champions were not good. Now we have a 1-mana champion from Demacia that will fit these type of low to the ground decks. If you guys have to just realize that if your opponent pings Lucian, you're not losing the game. It doesn't matter. In the type of deck Lucian wants to be played in, it's meaningless. If you're telling me Lucian is nerfed because Lucian dies to ping, you need to just reassess how you think about card game, because that's just not how it works. When is the last time you even saw Lucian? How is it possible for a champion that sees 0 play to get nerfed? It's a complete rebalance. It's a completely different champion. It sees plays in entirely different concept now. There is no nerf. If Lucian still doesn't work out in the 1-mana slot, then it's because he is a 1-mana champion that doesn't see play, not because he is a 2-mana champion that was already unplayable. I don't know if Lucian is going to be good, but I do feel like he'll be better than before. Because old Lucian was unplayable. There was no reason to play him. Because Demacia already had good 2-drops. But like, what decks would like him? Low to the ground, swarmy decks. People are mad over champ that they forgot to even exist. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh no, Lucian got nerfed. Okay, cool. When's the last time you saw Lucian played? Probably one of the meme decks that I uploaded like a month ago. 1 HP and 2 HP have little differences. There is obviously a big difference between 1 and 2 HP, because a card that's insane, like Pokestick and Balfeast, exists that will kill Lucian. That's a 2-mana card for a 1-mana unit. But you have to also consider that Lucian, instead of being 2-mana, is now 1-mana. And that is an even bigger buff. Just don't say that Lucian is nerfed because he is now pingable, because it's not even a real take. Just give him tough, yeah. Just play Chain Vest so you can protect your Lucian, right? No, you don't need to. A 1-mana 2-1 with quick attack is just good. Low investment with mid upside that is Lucian in my... Yeah, basically. The thing is, the mid upside here is that you have a 2-attack quick attacker. That is the mid upside. That in a lot of decks, that's just pretty good, right? The big upside is when he levels. And then you just win. I used to love Lucian Azir, but I don't care because it's not playable anymore anyway. With this change, it's a lot more playable than when Lucian was at 2. Infinitely more playable. Lucian on 1, dies on 2, Azir on 3. Good curve. You weren't able to do that before. There has never been a 1-mana champion that hasn't been a serious threat in the meta for such a long time. Every single 1-mana champion has been insane one point or another. Annie, very good. Fizz has seen so many disgusting OTK meta decks. Cannon, well, where to even begin? Teemo has seen a lot of play as an aggressive unit for burn decks. Now is not great, obviously, because puff caps aren't that good. But Ezreal Teemo was tier 0, more or less, for a long time. And Teemo Zoe was playable too, yeah, just because he's a 1-mana loser. Zoe has never been bad. All right, I'm moving on from Lucian now. But this is not nerf. It is likely a buff, but seeing this in terms of buffs or nerf is wrong right now, because it's just so different. Worst case scenario is a side grade? Exactly. That is literally worst case scenario, because it's just a new card. It's a nerf one. It's not a nerf. It's a new card. It's not a nerf. It's not a nerf. Just the whole idea of, oh, Lucian dives to a ping, so it's a nerf. It's I don't know. Man, I play a lot of meme decks, but goddamn, how is he going to level up? Who cares? Literally, who cares? It's 2-mana 2-1 with quick attack. Wait, I can't see what it is. What was the Gamba? We talk about Lucian for more than 10 minutes. Oh no, dude. It was like 10 minutes and a few seconds. I mean, I was technically still talking about it now. I guess it was longer than 10 minutes. If I play a champion and it gets pinged and dies, I instant FF. Man, you must have a miserable time playing Legends of Runeterra. The amount of times that has happened to my Zoe, I can't even count on one hand. I can't even count it on 10 hands. Listen, I will say this one more time, and this is definitive, okay? Lucian right now, you are not going to build a deck that says, I am going to play Lucian, and all my deck cares about is keeping Lucian alive and leveling Lucian. That has never been what Lucian was. That will never be something that a 1-mana champion that just reads 2-1 quick attack with no additional text is going to be. Okay? It's the same with Zoe. Zoe is a 1-1 elusive that you don't need to level because he just gives you value. In a region like Demacia, having something with 2 attack and quick attack is value. For Targon, that is the equivalent of getting a super cool star chart. Okay? You want to play Lucian in decks that play low-cost units, low to the ground, rally sometimes, go wide, buff up those stats, and that is all they do. And Lucian loves those type of decks. Always has, and will even more on 1 mana. Because you get to play him on turn 1, you get to play something like the 2/2 that buffs health on turn 2.
Can we agree to just
makes
plink
you happy.
every time Snnuy rants? Plink.
It's just understanding what a champion wants to do. That's what it is. The one deck that is interesting here that I want to call out is Lucian Eve. Lucian Eve loves this change as well because that deck finally gets a 1 mana unit that they're happy to play. He's in the Masha just for Ranger's Resolve or Chain Vest, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't play Chain Vest just because Lucian, but Ranger's Resolve is insane in the type of decks that Lucian wants to be played in. So you already have access to that because your deck loves it. You don't need to like completely throw around your deck because, oh no, Lucian is 2 mana or Lucian is 1 mana now and I really don't want him to die. That's never been the case. Okay, moving on for real. Yi goes to what they like to call a deck quest. So Master Yi now levels whenever any Master Yi deals damage beyond the first one. This is fine. I don't mind this. Yeah, Master Yi is basically Pike. I don't think this really matters, to be honest. It's pretty nice. It's good. It's a meaningful buff. But does this help the Yi decks? This doesn't help me consistently proc flow on 3. This doesn't help me immediately win the game because Master Yi is suddenly better at closing out the game. That doesn't really happen. One thing I might see is, again, buffs like with Forge, the time and dedication. You play the Artisan on 2, which is now a good card because it's 2/3. You get the time and dedication. That's 1 flow proc for Yi, and then you play any other 2 mana. Oh no, wait, you can't because then you only have 1 spell mana. Never mind. Yeah, that doesn't really change anything. It doesn't really help Yi decks do anything better. Makes it more consistent to level Yi, and if your deck wants to level Yi, that'll be a slight buff, but those decks aren't going to be any better because of this. That's actually a good point. Yeah, Retreat is probably the biggest change for this. Retreat will be very good because it is good for... Yeah, that's a good point. Retreat is the biggest difference here. Or the thing that really matters for this, with this kind of change. Master Yi doesn't help me because he wears pink. Yeah, it's a pink card. Ionia, Mage. How was Retreat changed? No, Retreat isn't changed. The thing with Retreat is that you can now recall Yi and then resummon him with the whatever part of Retreat there is, and he won't lose his level of progress. So you have a good way to protect Yi now. Don't lose any progress you made, and also activate flow. And that is very good. Okay, so this is one of my favorite changes of the patch. This just makes Dragons so much more playable. So Shyvana does go from 12+ to 16+, but she is now also a deck quest. So this is really big for SI dragons because they have a 2-mana dragon. Super good. And if your first Shyvana dies, which actually happens pretty frequently because people are terrified of Shyvana, then the second one that you play will just come down leveled. And then also, not only that, you also get a 2-cost fleeting strafing strike in hand. Oh, try saying that 5 times really fast. You get a single combat for dragons. 2 mana over 3 mana is also pretty big. I've been in a lot of situations where I'm like, oh, I get this, but I really don't want to pay 3 mana for it. At 2 mana, this is going to feel really good. This is huge for dragons. And only for dragons. There used to be literally Shyvana Pantheon decks way back when. It was mostly because of the 3 mana Faded Dragon. And Shyvana was played there because it was really good against Daring Poros at the time, I believe. It was really good against a specific deck. You could just play Shyvana there, keep her around, level her because 12+ was pretty easy against those decks, and you'd be happy because it was just a good mid-range unit. She's going to level less often if that is your strategy, but we just need to accept that if you're going to the Masha for a mid-range champion, you're just going to leave very unsatisfied. So for a specific archetype in the Masha like dragons, this is pretty great. Kayle. This is exactly the only buff that I was willing to consider back when we talked about Kayle. She goes from 6 to 5. That was absolutely necessary because it's just unplayable at 6. And at 5, this is pretty big. She got... yeah, I don't know what to say, guys. But if we... Let's talk about Lucian and it being a nerf. Well, here we go. Kayle also goes from 6 to 5, gets a 1 mana reduction, and gets -1/-1. It's gotta be a nerf, guys. It's a nerf, okay? She gets -1/-1. Nerfed. Kayle nerfed. Yeah, unlucky. Man, she was too strong, to be honest. So, all right. Well, just like Lucian, this is also just much more playable. You wouldn't really go to Targon and be like, hey, I want to play a deck that plays for buffing up these stats, and then end with the conclusion that, hey, I should put Kayle in his deck. Because even if you want to, because he's a new card, it was never a good choice to play Kayle in your Kayle deck. It's like Master Yi. When you're playing a Master Yi deck, you should just cut Master Yi. With play effects, he's a 2/5. Oh, so it comes down as a 2/5? Well, even bigger then. So he only loses 1 health. That's a really nice quality of life buff, actually, because that also helps for level. I like that. It's super small, but it's like it works with how the card wants to function. This is really good. I could actually see Kayle being playable. And listen, that is not necessarily a good thing, because Kayle is an elusive deck. I love Kayle's level up. I really like her voice line, her thematic, her whole deck is pretty cool. But here's the thing, right? You're playing as Kayle. You're going to be dealing with a lot of elusive units that get their stats buffed. And then on turn 5, you're going to see a Kayle come down. Sometimes Kayle levels. Kayle will level because he levels pretty fast if you're playing a dedicated Kayle deck, which you will. So he's going to have Overwhelm. And then there's just like, oh, now instead of elusive, there's also a really big Overwhelm unit that is going to end the game. And God forbid Kayle gets to 16 because you just die. So here's the thing, right? Kayle decks still lose to the same things. And, well, it's a nice buff. It will absolutely make the deck better. It's pretty frustrating archetype to play against. This has got to be tempo. Got to be. I still like it. I like that they did this. But I'm not overly excited about the Freljord, Targon, elusive decks. Okay, I'm going to quickly scroll past that one before I lose my mind. Okay, so here are the nerfs. Jinx's Rocket goes from 4 to 3. I wasn't sure if this was enough, because it's still like the aggro deck, and they still win the game through like Lulu Chompers. And then you see this. And this brought me to tears, because this is such a big nerf to Victor Riven. This is the real nerf to Jinx decks. Like this is a nerf. Don't get me wrong, it is. 3 damage to Nexus is a lot worse than 4 damage. But that the deck would still play in the exact same way, and they would still be extremely good at what they did. Because this is just damage to Nexus, right? Like 1 damage is often, you're going to be able to deal 1 more damage in aggro decks if you really want to. But this actually affects the way the deck is played in the early turns. You can no longer play 1 drop, 2 drop. On 3, you'd play Lulu, and then you Chompers. You cheat out the Chompers with the Poro Cannon. You can't do that anymore. Yeah, no 0 mana Chompers is the real change here. So yeah, big nerf. This in combination with this is going to make the decks a lot worse. Jinx Echo is a good point, though. Jinx Echo will definitely still be a thing. Jinx Echo kind of scares me, because it was arguably like the best deck in the game already. Jinx was the most fun deck. Well, just play Jinx Echo, and it's still going to be tier 1. And here's Quietus. I love this change, actually, because it's so clever. Everybody was discussing Quietus changes, and then they do something nobody would have expected. So it now kills you with a total health and power of 4 or less. So if you are a 2/2, you die to Quietus. If you are 2/3, you don't die to Quietus. Here's what I like about this, right? It creates kind of a mind game. It creates a little mini game between the user and the other player that is trying to protect their unit. Say you want to Quietus a 2/2, and they say, nope, I'm giving my unit +1/+1. You could Mystic Shot that unit, take off 2 health, and suddenly it is back in Quietus range. You can play a Troll Chant. Okay, that's a pretty bad example, I guess, because that's already how Quietus functioned before, but damage spells create this really funny mind game where sometimes you can protect your unit, sometimes you can't, and that's fun. That makes the game interactive, and interaction is good. Quietus is a lot more interactable right now. Quicksand, yeah, sure, Quicksand, but with the old Quietus, you could already kind of do that, so it's not a great example. You could already Quicksand something, and then they would be in Quietus range, because they would likely not have 2 power left, or more than 2 power left. The interaction regarding health is very fun. Can't kill Braum. Right now, you can Mystic Shot Braum, and then Braum is still in Quietus range, but you gotta do work for it. Yeah, I don't like that you can no longer kill Veigar and Seraphine. That is actually pretty upsetting. But hey, we'll take what we can get. This is also the biggest buff to Illaoi. You no longer have to insta-surrender against Shadow Owl. You only do that when they vengeance your big tentacle now. Eye of Nagakabouros goes from burst to focus, and I also love this change. This card was kind of disgusting for a very long time. And I'm surprised it took them this long to nerf it. This is not like a huge nerf to Illaoi, because Illaoi already has a tentacle. And you could have like the combat tricks where your opponent tried to remove it, or do like you're in combat, you burst out +2/+2 on your tentacle. That's no longer a thing, but that shouldn't matter that much to Illaoi, especially with the deck, with the buffs you already got. But this is a nerf to Swaying Twisted Fate, it's a nerf to Rise deck, it's a nerf to Plunder. Every single meta built for the deck is affected by this, more or less. So this is really, really good. Burst blocker is broken. Yeah, it is. It changed a lot for Buildwater. Great nerf. Love to see it. There should be an actual investment you have to make for just getting a unit and drawing 2 cards. Because believe it or not, if you get to put something on the board and draw cards, you're playing Runeterra in the way you want to play Runeterra. So you're like getting insanely rewarded for just playing the game the intended way. Now there's like an actual investment and some thinking behind it. Very, very good. Okay, and Katarina goes from 3/2 to 2/2. Katarina dives to Quietus. What I thought is really funny is that I just uploaded that Katarina video. I mean, to be fair, the video talked about Katarina throughout 2022. This falls outside of that, so I didn't mess up, right? The conclusion of that video was at 2022, she was, at the start of 2022, she was unplayable. And at the end of 2022, she won Worlds. Now we're in 2023, so hey, I'll take that as a big win. Video did the job. This doesn't do anything, right? No, I don't think it changed a lot. This is a fairly small change. So the biggest change here, and this will also depend on what other decks are playable. The biggest change here is that cards like Scrying Sands and Troll Chant will now make Katarina 0 attack, which stops her in combat, which lets you block her and kill her. And that is really, really, really good. Scrying Sands saw a lot of play because of Echo Jinx. That deck will likely stay around. And Troll Chant, I'm expecting to see a little more play too because of Jax Ornn. And that's wonderful. Just getting points of interaction against Katarina decks is really, really good. She's actually like, you're able to stop her if you're running a deck that doesn't have quick Mystic Shot. Very good. That's the biggest change here. The one attack doesn't really matter because against a deck that she was going to level against, she's still going to level. But now 2 regions, Shurima, specifically Echo decks, and Freljord will have ways to stop Katarina. Yeah, she dies to Quietus, but exactly. I'm not expecting to see a lot of Quietus after the nerf. It'll depend though, because if Jax Ornn is as good as I think it's going to be, then people are gonna want to collect all the weapon removal they can get. Okay, so yeah, 3/3. Okay, new. Is that it? That's it, right? We can get the new cards. Okay, new cards. Riot made a card just for me. Soul Cleave. Kill an ally to summon 2 ephemeral copies of it in Shadow Isles, 3 mana slow. This is literally a card made for printers, and you'll love to see it. This card is very good. This card is really, really, really good. There is like no way this card doesn't find any play in a meta deck somewhere. Okay, listen. If you're okay, this is like the first scenario that popped in my head, right? But this is just to show you how insane this is. You have 1 Camavorran soldier on board, a 3/3. On turn 6, you play Viego. You use this on your Camavorran soldier. You get 2 ephemeral 3/3s, and you get 3 4/4s. 1 1 2 2. Yeah, 3 4/4s. My hit tweet, yeah, Winter Sands was the first one to call this out. Exactly. This was also the first thing I thought about. This on Camavorran soldier is so insane. Yeah, at least 3 4/4s. They could even be bigger than that. Also, this in Red Gwen decks would be insane. You can use this on the Minotaur, the one that gives you a free attack. You can use it on the one that gives Cam block. You can use it on the Dancers. It's actually like there are so many targets for this. Hextech Handler, exactly. This is another buff. Wait, dude, like this is so insane for Heimer Jace. If it turns out that Albus Ferros is playable, you can just get 2 of them to end the game. You use it on the Hextech Handler. There are so many targets for this in Heimer Jace. Mirai Great Mother, yeah, I love it. There are so many good targets for this. Hunting Boar, I mean, sure, Hunting Boar is kind of just +3 mana crystals. Yeah, it's a slow spell, lol. It's a 3 mana slow spell that can give you such insane amounts of value. Okay, here's the thing, right? If you're using the spell, you're using it for temporary value most of the time. Or value later. Moduli too. You're using the spell and you're killing something and you get 2 ephemerals. Those ephemerals are going to die this turn. So you're basically like removing a part of your board. If your opponent wants to interact with this, they're basically using a spell to get to a board state that was already going to happen. But they're denying that value for later. And sometimes that's a really difficult decision to make. Like, you're removing your board this turn. After the end of the turn you're playing this, your units will be gone.
Pesky Spectre support, let's go.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I'm down to play this with Pesky Spectre. That's +3. That's +6 in their deck. This won't be played in Heimer Jace. The single best target for this card is likely to be the Hextech Handler. If this doesn't see play in Jace Heimer, I doubt it will see play in many other decks. That's by far the best combo. Because that's a deck that will function and just have like another good card. I don't like this on Undying because you're just getting 3 2/2-stack camp block. Silent Rallies. Yeah, I personally, my favorite thing with this is Deathless Knight. You just get you get two 6/6s, whatever it is. What about the 5-cost 1/3 that summons a 7/3? Yeah, that's 3 7/3s with 3 impact. Another pretty good target. Yeah, absolutely. Anything I've ever printed, this card will just make that deck better. Probably with less investment too. This will be good for my Talia Ziggs SI Copium, and I literally will grind my ass to master if there. Oh, wait. Ziggs Talia with this card. You can use it on Megas. It's basically like Black Flame, but immediate. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Oh, wait. They get Haunted Tomb too, right? This is really good in Ziggs Talia, yeah. Yeah, I could see this in the deck, for sure. Ziggs Talia and SI, yeah, they have Haunted Tomb. Vengeance is like never a bad card. This card will be meta defining. If you cleave a Trina, are the ephemerals level up? I actually don't know. But you will have 3 Trinamirs. Yeah, Anivia is another very, very good target for this. I have a hard time seeing Anivia be meta though, even with this card. Anivia has been power curved really hard. But we'll have to see. And then there's Castigate. 7 mana from Shurima, slow kill all followers. I don't like this card. I think it's pretty bad. It's good with Nasus. It's funny with Nasus and Senna, and that's about it. It's and note the word funny, because I don't think it'll be good.
Castigate. No, it doesn't resemble Cassiopeia's ultimate artwork at all. Definitely doesn't match her regions, as she certainly didn't become a champion in Shurima, or have any relation to Shurima. This is a lie. Fiddlesticks confirmed.
It's a Fiddlesticks card, yeah, exactly. 7 mana Ruination. Nah, the only thing to take away from this is that it's Fiddlesticks teaser. 100%. So those were all the cards. These are Path of Champion changes, which I am not going to go through. Yeah, biggest takeaways for me here are the Jax Weapon Master buffs. Jax is going to be very, very good. Definitely will see a lot of Jax dispatch. Definitely will see a lot of Illaoi because of this. Quietus being nerfed and the +1 attack. Lastly, I also feel like there might be space in this meta for some Bandle rally decks, Scouts, and Lucian will be the catalyzer of making those decks playable. I'm fully expecting Lucian to see a deck somewhere. This is too good to be ignored. And while it's not completely like easy to define immediately, it will eventually be it will eventually find a deck, and it will make that deck good. I'm not saying it's too good. I'm saying it's good. Oh, I didn't even talk about the Kayn Aatrox nerf. You're right. Are they near the top? Wait, where the hell are they? They're not in here? That's weird. Yeah, okay, so Aatrox got nerfed. Aatrox now needs unique weapons to draw Aatrox, and Kayn needs 4 cultists, which is a great nerf. It makes the deck lose some consistency. I'm very happy about it.
I'm so glad we traded Quietus for such an interesting card like Soul Cleave.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, man. There are so many different scenarios where you're going to see Soul Cleave pop off. It is such an interesting card for deck building, too. Thank you, Rice Queen, for the bit. Yeah, I'm very, very interested in making 1 million Soul Cleave decks. Soul Cleave is like Black Flame, but in a cool region. Great changes. I am just very excited about jumping back into the meta with some fresh decks to play. Jinx Echo will still be around. Aatrox Kayn will be dead. Gwen Katarina likely going to still be a very, very, very dominant deck in the meta. But that should get touched up maybe next month. There's no way hell it stays around for a much longer time. It is way too powerful as unlike a baseline level. The entire package can just be shoved into anything. The only thing I'm missing really is more Targon buffs. I was hoping for some invoke. For some invoking. But all we got is Kill. And while I'm not unhappy with that, because Kill is a pretty cool champion right now, she's mostly cool because she's not very meta, and she's pretty bad. And big stats are sometimes fun. As far as pushing an elusive deck goes, it will be a little bit annoying, frustrating to play against. So let me know what you think. And I'm excited for the patch tomorrow.